Queen Velraya stood on the bridge of her massive warship, looking at the blue planet floating in the darkness of space. Earth. Such a small world, she thought, so weak and unimportant. Her 4 red eyes studied the holographic image in front of her. This would be an easy victory, just like all the others. The Queen had ruled the Vraxis Empire for over 200 years. In that time, her fleet had conquered 847 worlds. 847 different species had bowed before her. Some had fought. Most had simply surrendered when they saw her ships arrive. It did not matter either way. They all belonged to the Vraxis now. Commander Thexanol approached her, his armored body making heavy sounds on the metal floor. He was her most trusted officer, a warrior who had served her for decades. He carried a data tablet in his clawed hands. "My queen," he said, bowing his head. "The scans are complete. The humans are primitive. They have only basic weapons. Their ships are old and slow. They have no defenses that can stop us." Velraya smiled, showing her sharp teeth. "How many ships do they have?" 40 warships, my queen. All of them outdated. We have brought 200 dreadnoughts. This battle will be over before sunset on their planet." The queen nodded. She had expected this. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as a young species. They had only just begun to explore space. They had no powerful allies, no advanced technology, no reason to believe they could survive what was coming. She pressed a button on her command chair. Instantly, her voice was broadcast to every screen on Earth. Every television, every computer, every communication device suddenly showed her face. "Humans of Earth," she said, her voice cold and clear. "I am Queen Velraya of the Vraxis Empire. Your world now belongs to me. You have 1 rotation of your sun to surrender. Send your leaders to my ship. Bow before me. Accept your place in my empire. If you do this, I will let most of you live. If you resist, I will turn your cities to ash. I will burn your forests and boil your oceans. Nothing will remain." She ended the transmission and sat back in her chair. Around her, the crew of the Eternal Dominion prepared for battle. Weapons were charged, shields were activated. 200 warships moved into position around Earth's moon, blocking out the stars. On Earth, panic spread like fire. In cities around the world, people watched the alien queen's message on their screens. Some cried, some prayed, some ran to be with their families. The governments of Earth called an emergency meeting. The United Planetary Defense Council gathered in a secure bunker beneath the city of Seoul. Representatives from every nation sat around a long table. The room was filled with fear and anger and desperate hope. Ambassador Yuri spoke first. She was an older woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had spent her life working for peace between nations. Now she faced something far worse than human conflict. "We must surrender," she said quietly. "I have studied the Vraxis Empire. They have destroyed 23 civilizations that resisted them, 23 entire species wiped from existence. We cannot win this fight. Our duty is to save as many lives as possible." Many heads nodded around the table. The logic was clear. The Vraxis were too powerful. Resistance meant death. But then Jin stood up. She was younger than most people in the room, only 35 years old. She had been appointed as defense coordinator just 6 months ago. Some had said she was too young for such an important job. Now everyone looked at her. "No," Jin said firmly. "We will not surrender." Yuri stared at her. "Have you lost your mind? Did you not hear what I said? We cannot win." Jin walked to the center of the room. She touched a control panel, and images appeared in the air above the table. Images of human history, wars, battles, moments when everything seemed lost. 400 years ago, our ancestors nearly destroyed this planet, Jin said. "We built weapons that could kill millions. We poisoned our air and water. We were dying and we knew it. But we did not give up. We changed. We learned. We survived. She changed the images. Now they showed more recent history. The colonization of Mars, the construction of the orbital stations, humanity's first steps into the wider universe. We have faced impossible odds before, Jin continued. We have stood against enemies stronger than us. We have survived ice ages and plagues and our own stupidity. We are still here because we do not quit. We do not bow. We fight. This is different, Yuri argued. Those were human problems. This is an empire that has conquered hundreds of worlds. Jin turned to face her. Then we will be the first world they fail to conquer. The room erupted in argument. Some agreed with Jin. Others called her a fool. The debate raged for an hour. Finally, they voted. The decision was close, but Jin won. Humanity would fight. Jin left the council chamber and went directly to the military command center. She had 40 ships, 40 old, outdated warships against 200 alien dreadnoughts. She had orbital defense platforms with weapons that seemed like toys compared to Vraxis technology. She had brave soldiers with guns that might not even scratch alien armor. It was not enough. It would never be enough. But Jin remembered something her grandfather had told her when she was a child. He had been a soldier once, in one of the last wars before humanity united. He had fought in battles where he was outnumbered and outgunned. He had seen friends die. He had almost died himself. We did not win because we were stronger, he had said. We won because we refused to lose. Jin gave her orders. All ships would pull back to Earth, forming a defensive ring around the planet. They would not attack first. They would make the Vraxis come to them. Every advantage, no matter how small, would matter. The deadline approached. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Queen Velraya waited for the human surrender. No message came. No leaders arrived to bow before her. Instead, her sensors showed human ships moving into battle formation. The Queen laughed. It was a harsh, cruel sound. They choose death. Very well, Commander Thexnal, begin the invasion. Show these primitives what happens when they defy the Vraxis Empire. The Vraxis fleet advanced toward Earth. Weapon systems came online, glowing with deadly energy. 200 ships against 40, an empire against one small world. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The first human ship exploded in a ball of fire and metal, then another, then 3 more. Within the first hour of battle, 15 of Earth's 40 ships were gone. The Vraxis weapons tore through human shields like they were made of paper. Their armor could not be scratched by human missiles. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Queen Velraya watched the battle with bored eyes. This was exactly what she had expected. The humans were brave, she would give them that much. But bravery meant nothing against superior power. How long until they retreat? She asked Commander Thexnal. The commander checked his displays. They should have retreated already, my queen. Most species flee after losing 30% of their forces. The humans have lost more than that, but they are still fighting. Velraya frowned slightly. That was unusual, but not alarming. Continue the assault. They will break soon enough. But the humans did not break. They did not retreat. Instead, they fought harder. A human captain named Day watched his ship's shields fail. His weapons were almost out of ammunition. His crew was injured and afraid. He could have run. He could have saved his ship and his people. Instead, he gave an order that made his crew stare at him in shock. Full power to engines. Target that dreadnought directly ahead. We're going to ram it. His second officer, a young woman named Rena, grabbed his arm. Captain, that's suicide! Day looked at her with calm eyes. Get everyone to the escape pods. Launch in 30 seconds. I'll stay and keep the ship on course. Rena wanted to argue, but she knew that look. She had seen it before in soldiers who had made their choice. She gathered the crew and got them to the escape pods. They launched just as the ship accelerated to full speed. Day sat alone on the bridge, watching the Vraxis dreadnought grow larger in his view screen. He thought about his daughter back on Earth. She was 7 years old. He would never see her grow up. But maybe, if he did this, she would have a chance to grow up at all. The human ship crashed into the Vraxis dreadnought at full speed. The explosion lit up space like a small sun. When the light faded, both ships were gone. Debris scattered in all directions. The escape pods tumbled away, their occupants alive but shaken. On the Eternal Dominion, Commander Thexnal's voice rose in alarm. "My queen! The humans are using their ships as weapons! 3 more vessels are on ramming courses!" Velraya stood up from her chair. "Destroy them before they reach our ships!" But the human captains were clever. They flew erratic patterns, making themselves hard to hit. They used debris as cover. 2 more human ships made it through and crashed into Vraxis dreadnoughts. 2 more massive explosions, 4 Vraxis ships destroyed by human desperation. The battle raged for 3 days. Earth's fleet shrank from 40 ships to 25, then to 15, then to 10. But the Vraxis were bleeding too. 30 dreadnoughts destroyed, then 40, then 47. Deep beneath Sol, Jin stood in the command bunker, watching displays that showed the battle in space above. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. She had not left this room in 3 days. Around her, officers worked frantically, coordinating attacks and managing resources. Tactical Officer Hana sat at a nearby console, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. She was analyzing Vraxis ship movements, looking for patterns, looking for weaknesses. "There," Hana said suddenly, pointing at her screen. "Do you see it? Their shields pulse. Every 17 seconds, there's a microsecond when the energy drops by 0.3%. It's almost invisible, but it's there." Jin leaned closer, studying the data. "Can we exploit it? If we time our shots perfectly, hit the same shield section over and over right when the pulse drops. It would take multiple hits, but eventually—" Hana smiled grimly. "Eventually, we can break through." Jin immediately sent new orders to the fleet. Human ships began targeting specific points on Vraxis shields, timing their attacks with incredible precision. It was difficult. It required perfect coordination, but humans had always been good at adapting. The first Vraxis shield collapsed after 87 precisely timed hits. Human missiles poured through the gap, striking the ship's hull. The dreadnought exploded. On the Vraxis flagship, Commander Thexnal reported this new development with growing concern. "My queen, the humans are learning. They have discovered a flaw in our shields. Our losses are increasing." Velraya stared at the tactical display. This should not be happening. Humans were primitive. They should not be able to find weaknesses that had gone undiscovered for centuries. They should not be able to adapt this quickly. "How many ships have we lost?" she asked quietly. 47 dreadnoughts destroyed, my queen. 23 more heavily damaged. 70 ships. The Vraxis had lost 70 ships to a species that should have been crushed in hours. This was more than embarrassing. This was impossible. The queen's anger grew hot. She would not be humiliated by primitives. She would not let this battle drag on any longer. "Commander, commit 80% of the fleet. I want overwhelming force. Destroy every human ship. Destroy their orbital stations. Break their will to fight." 160 Vraxis dreadnoughts moved forward in a massive wave. Their weapons glowed with deadly power. This was the full might of the Empire, brought to bear on one small world. Jin watched the enemy fleet advance. She knew what this meant. This was the killing blow. Earth's remaining ships could not survive this assault. She had perhaps 1 hour left before the fleet was destroyed. Then the Vraxis would begin bombing the surface. But in that moment, something remarkable happened. Across Earth, Ordinary people made an extraordinary choice. They would not hide while others fought. They would not wait for death to come. Ships began launching from Earth. Not military vessels. Civilian ships. Cargo haulers with makeshift weapons bolted to their hulls. Mining vessels armed with cutting lasers. Personal yachts carrying troops in pressure suits. Even luxury cruise liners, their elegant hulls now filled with soldiers and ammunition. Thousands of ships. Tens of thousands. Every vessel that could fly, every person who could fight, rising up from Earth to join the battle. Jin watched in amazement as the civilian fleet formed up alongside the remaining military ships. A message came through from one of the civilian captains. Defense Coordinator Jin, this is Merchant Captain Borum. I'm flying a cargo hauler with 6 missile pods and a crew of 12. We're not soldiers, but we're here to fight. All of us are here. Tell us what to do. Jin felt tears in her eyes. She wiped them away quickly and opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Jin. Thank you. Thank you for your courage. Now listen carefully. We're going to hit them with everything we have. We're going to show these invaders what humanity means. The two fleets collided in the space between Earth and the Moon. It was the largest battle humanity had ever fought. Ships exploded by the dozens. Weapons fire lit up the darkness. Brave humans died by the thousands. But the Vraxis died too. 6 days had passed since the Vraxis fleet arrived at Earth. 6 days of constant battle. 6 days of death and fire and desperate courage. Queen Veluraya stood on her bridge, staring at casualty reports she could barely believe. 94 dreadnoughts destroyed. 94 of her mighty warships reduced to floating debris. The humans had lost most of their fleet too. But that did not matter. What mattered was that they were still fighting. Half of Earth's military ships were gone. The orbital defense platforms were nothing but wreckage. But civilian vessels kept launching from the planet's surface, wave after wave of them. The Queen had never seen anything like this. In 847 conquests, she had never encountered a species this stubborn, this insane. Most civilizations surrendered after losing even 20% of their forces. The humans had lost far more than that, and they showed no signs of stopping. "My queen," Commander Thexanol said carefully, "perhaps we should consider withdrawal. The cost of this conquest is becoming unacceptable." Veluraya turned to him with fury in her 4 red eyes. "Withdrawal? You suggest we flee from primitives? Never! I will see this planet burn before I admit defeat!" But even as she said it, she knew something was wrong. This was not how conquests were supposed to go. The Vraxis Empire won through overwhelming power and fear. They arrived, they demonstrated their strength, and their enemies surrendered. Clean, efficient, logical. There was nothing logical about what the humans were doing. They fought knowing they would lose. They threw their lives away for meaningless victories. They adapted and learned and refused to accept reality. The Queen needed to understand. She needed to know what drove these creatures to such madness. "Open a communication channel to the human commander," she ordered. A moment later, Jin's face appeared on the main view screen. The Queen studied the human woman carefully. Jin looked exhausted. Her uniform was covered in dust and small cuts. The bunker behind her showed signs of damage from recent bombing runs. This human should be broken. She should be begging for mercy. Instead, her eyes burned with defiance. "I am Queen Veluraya," the alien ruler began. "I offer you one final chance to surrender. Stop fighting. Send your leaders to my ship. I will let most of your people live. Continue this foolish resistance, and I will reduce every city on your planet to molten glass. Your oceans will boil. Your forests will become ash. Nothing will remain. Do you understand?" Jin was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke in a calm, steady voice. "You have conquered 847 worlds, but you have never fought anyone like us. We do not surrender. We do not break. You can kill us all, and you probably will. But you will remember Earth. You will remember the price we made you pay. Velraya felt something she had not felt in centuries: uncertainty. Why? She demanded. Why do you resist when resistance is meaningless? Other species beg for mercy. They offer us tribute and wealth. You offer only death, yours and ours. What madness drives you? Jin leaned forward slightly. 400 years ago, we nearly destroyed ourselves. We stood on the edge of extinction. Our world was dying, and it was our own fault. We had a choice then. We could give up and die, or we could change everything about who we were. We chose to survive. We learned that humanity's greatest strength is not our weapons or our technology. It is our refusal to accept defeat. The Queen wanted to scoff at this, to dismiss it as primitive foolishness. But before she could respond, Commander Thexnall interrupted. My Queen, urgent report. More human ships are arriving. They have converted civilian passenger liners into troop carriers. Mining vessels are being used as bomb delivery systems. Even small personal craft are joining the battle. The entire planet is mobilizing. Velraya turned away from the screen, her mind racing. This was unprecedented. Conquered species did not act this way. They did not fight to the last person. They did not turn every available resource into a weapon. My Queen, another officer called out. The humans are transmitting a data packet on all frequencies. It appears to be a recording of some kind. Show me, Velraya ordered. A holographic image appeared in the center of the bridge. It showed an old human male standing before a stone monument. The recording was old and grainy, clearly made with primitive technology. The human spoke in his own language, which the Vraxis translation system converted to their tongue. We stand here today to honor those who held the line, the old human said, to honor Lieutenant Tay and his soldiers, who taught us what it means to never surrender, even when surrender seems like the only choice. They showed us that courage is not about winning. It is about fighting anyway. The recording ended. Velraya stared at the empty air where the image had been. What was that? Who is this Tai? One of her intelligence officers checked the database. We have limited information, my Queen. The name appears in human historical records. It seems to refer to a soldier from one of their ancient conflicts. The translation systems are having difficulty with the context. The Queen dismissed it. Human propaganda, nothing more. An attempt to inspire their people with stories of dead heroes. It would not save them. Continue the assault, she ordered. I want this finished. But the battle did not finish. It dragged on into the 7th day. The Vraxis lost 20 more ships in a single engagement when human pilots flew their vessels directly into enemy formations, detonating their reactors in massive explosions. Each human ship that died this way took at least one Vraxis dreadnought with it. Earth's military fleet was down to just 8 ships, but those 8 ships fought like demons. They struck and retreated, bleeding the Vraxis fleet with precision attacks. Queen Velraya found herself unable to sleep. She sat in her private quarters, surrounded by data displays showing human history. She had ordered her intelligence officers to compile everything they could find about Earth and its people. She needed to understand what she was fighting. What she read disturbed her deeply. Humans had been at war with themselves for most of their recorded history. They had survived ice ages that should have killed them. They had endured plagues that wiped out half their population. They had built weapons powerful enough to destroy their entire planet and came within minutes of using them. But they had survived. They had always survived. The reports showed wars fought on Earth's surface, battles where humans faced impossible odds and won through sheer determination. The Korean War appeared multiple times in the records. Something about a place called Gloucester Hill. Humans holding a defensive position against an enemy force 50 times larger, fighting with no hope of rescue or reinforcement. And that name appeared again. Tay. The soldier from the monument. A lieutenant who held his position for 3 days against overwhelming odds. who refused to retreat even when surrounded, who fought with bayonets when ammunition ran out and with bare hands when the bayonets broke. Velraya studied the historical records carefully. This Tai had not won his battle. His position was eventually overrun. Most of his soldiers died. By any logical measure, it was a defeat. Yet humans spoke of it as a victory. They built monuments to remember it. They taught their children about it. They used this soldier's name as a symbol of something the Queen did not fully understand. Why did humans celebrate their defeats? Why did they draw strength from failure? The Queen's door chimed. Commander Thexnal entered, looking grave. "My Queen, I must speak plainly. We have lost 114 dreadnoughts. More than half our fleet. Our warriors are exhausted. The humans show no signs of surrender. If we continue, we may lose everything." Velraya stood and walked to the window, looking out at the blue planet below. So small, so weak. Yet it had cost her more than any conquest in the Empire's history. "Arrange another communication with their commander," she said quietly. "I will speak with this Jinn again." The 7th day of battle brought new horrors for the Vraxis fleet. A dreadnought called the Void Hammer detected breach pods attaching to its hull. Before the crew could react, human marines cut through the outer armor with plasma torches. 20 humans in combat armor poured into the ship's corridors. The Vraxis security forces responded quickly, but the humans fought with terrifying efficiency. They moved through the ship like they had trained for this their entire lives. Room by room, corridor by corridor, they advanced toward the reactor core. The ship's captain ordered all available troops to stop the intruders. 200 Vraxis warriors converged on the reactor room. They had the humans trapped, outnumbered 10 to 1. Victory seemed certain. But the human squad leader, a woman named Mira, had no intention of fighting her way back out. She looked at her team, saw the understanding in their eyes, and spoke calmly into her radio. "Command, this is Strike Team 7. Target is reached. Beginning extraction countdown." She set charges on the reactor core with steady hands. The Vraxis warriors outside the sealed door tried desperately to break through. They had 4 minutes before the charges detonated. 3 minutes. 2. A small shuttle detached from the Void Hammer's emergency bay. It accelerated away at maximum speed, dodging Vraxis weapons fire. Inside were Mira and her 19 Marines, having used maintenance shafts and service corridors to reach the shuttle bay, while the Vraxis forces focused on the reactor room. The reactor exploded exactly on schedule. The Void Hammer broke apart in a massive fireball. The explosion was so large it caught 2 nearby dreadnoughts, damaging them critically. They drifted away from the battle, leaking atmosphere and energy. On the Eternal Dominion, Queen Velraya watched this disaster unfold with growing horror. These primitives had boarded one of her most powerful ships, destroyed it from within, and escaped. It should have been impossible. Yet she had just watched it happen. "How many ships remain?" she asked Commander Thexnal, her voice hollow. 113 functional dreadnoughts, my queen. 27 damaged vessels awaiting repair. We began this campaign with 200 ships. We have lost nearly half our fleet. Half her fleet, lost to one primitive planet. The Queen felt the weight of those numbers crushing down on her. This was no longer a conquest. This was a disaster that would echo through the Empire for generations. But what truly terrified her was Earth's status. The human military fleet was down to just 5 ships. 5. Yet Earth was still fighting. Civilian vessels continued launching. Ground-based weapons fired at any Vraxis ship that came too close to the atmosphere. The humans had lost far more than the Vraxis in absolute numbers, but they showed no sign of giving up. "I need to understand," Velraya said quietly. "Order the intelligence division to send me everything about human military history. Everything about their wars, their battles, their defeats. I want to know what makes them fight this way. For the next 6 hours, the Queen sat in her quarters, reading report after report. She learned about World War I, where humans fought in frozen trenches for years over tiny pieces of land. World War II, where entire cities were destroyed and millions died, but humans kept fighting. The Korean War, where soldiers fought in terrible cold without proper supplies. She read about battles where humans were surrounded and outnumbered, but refused to surrender. She read about last stands and desperate defenses. She read about soldiers who fought knowing they would die, but fought anyway because their sacrifice might save others. And everywhere in these records, she found examples of the same pattern. Humans did not fight to win. They fought to survive. They fought to protect. They fought because giving up was worse than death. One battle kept appearing in the reports, a place called Gloucester Hill in the Korean War. A British and Korean force of less than 1,000 soldiers facing a Chinese army of over 25,000. The defenders were told to hold for 1 day to let Allied forces retreat. They held for 3 days. The Queen read the details carefully. Lieutenant Tae had been one of the Korean soldiers at that battle. When ammunition ran low, he organized hand-to-hand combat training. When supplies ran out, he rationed the last food to the wounded. When the position was finally overrun, he was found still fighting, wounded multiple times, surrounded by fallen enemies. He survived the battle but died years later. Yet his name lived on. Humans told his story to their children. They built monuments. They spoke of him with reverence. Velraya finally understood. Tae had lost. His position fell. His mission technically failed. But humans saw it differently. To them, holding for 3 days instead of 1 was a victory. Saving Allied forces was a victory. Fighting to the last breath was a victory. Humans measured success differently than the Vraxis. They saw honor in resistance itself, not just in winning. A message came through from Commander Thexanol. My Queen, the humans are preparing another major offensive. Our scouts report they are gathering every remaining ship for one final push. Velraya stood and returned to the bridge. She looked at the tactical displays showing 5 human military ships and perhaps 200 civilian vessels preparing to attack. It was a pathetic force compared to her 113 dreadnoughts. This should be an easy victory. But the Queen no longer believed in easy victories against humans. She had learned that lesson at a terrible cost. All ships, prepare for defensive formation, she ordered. Maximum shields. I want every vessel ready. The human fleet attacked with desperate courage. They came in waves, sacrificing ships to create openings for others. They used every trick, every tactic they had learned in 7 days of brutal combat. Civilian vessels loaded with explosives rammed Vraxis shields, weakening them for military ships to exploit. Small craft dodged between larger vessels, targeting weapon systems and engines. The Vraxis fought back with overwhelming firepower. Dozens of human ships exploded. The space between Earth and Moon filled with debris and frozen bodies. But still the humans came. A human pilot named Quan flew his small fighter through a gap in the Vraxis formation. His ship was damaged, his weapons almost empty. He saw a Vraxis command ship ahead, shields weakened by previous attacks. He could run. He could retreat to fight another day. Instead, he armed his last missile and accelerated. He thought about his wife and son on Earth. He thought about all the people depending on him. He thought about Lieutenant Tae holding his position centuries ago, refusing to retreat. For Earth, Quan whispered. Then he fired his missile and crashed his fighter into the command ship's shield. The combined impact and explosion created a breach. 3 human missiles from other ships followed through the gap, striking the command ship's hull. The vessel erupted in flames. On the Eternal Dominion, Queen Velraya watched another of her ships die. She felt something breaking inside her. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. Conquests were not supposed to be this costly. Primitive species were not supposed to fight this hard. "My queen," Commander Thexnell said urgently, "if we continue, we will lose more ships. The humans cannot win, but they can bleed us until we have nothing left. Our warriors are afraid. They have never faced an enemy like this." The queen looked at her old friend and saw the truth in his eyes. The Vraxis were losing their will to fight. They had always won through superior power and the fear they inspired. But the humans were not afraid. And the Vraxis had discovered what it meant to face an enemy with nothing left to lose. "Request communication with the human commander," Velraya said. "I will speak with Jin one more time." Jin stood in the command bunker, her body aching from exhaustion. 7 days of constant battle had taken their toll. The bunker had been hit twice by Vraxis bombs. Half her staff was injured. The air recycling system was failing, making it hard to breathe. But she was still alive. Earth was still fighting. Her communication officer looked up from his console. "Defense Coordinator, the Vraxis Queen is requesting to speak with you again." Jin nodded. "Put her through." Queen Velraya's face appeared on the screen. Jin noticed something different about the alien ruler. The arrogance was gone. The cruel confidence had vanished. Instead, the queen looked tired, uncertain, almost human in her exhaustion. "Human Jin," Velraya said slowly, "I am offering you one final chance to negotiate, not surrender. Negotiate. Tell me what you want, and perhaps we can find a solution that does not require more death." Jin felt a surge of hope, but she kept her face neutral. "What I want is simple. Leave. Take your ships and go. Never return. Let humanity live in peace." The queen was quiet for a long moment. "I cannot simply leave. I have lost 120 ships to your world. My empire will demand justification for this cost. If I withdraw with nothing to show, I will be seen as weak. Other conquered species might rebel." "Then you have a choice," Jin said. "Continue fighting until you destroy us and lose even more ships, or leave now while you still have a fleet. Either way, the other species in your empire will hear about Earth. They will know that one primitive planet cost you this much. The question is whether you want that story to end with our extinction or our freedom." Velraya's 4 eyes studied Jin carefully. "You have been searching our history, trying to understand us. I have been doing the same with yours. I have read about your wars, your battles, your refusal to accept defeat." The queen paused, then continued. "I have read extensively about a soldier named Tay, a lieutenant from one of your ancient conflicts. I am trying to understand why his name appears so often in your records. He lost his battle. His position fell. Yet your people speak of him as a hero. Why?" Jin felt her heartbeat quicken. This was the moment. This was why the queen had truly called. She wanted to understand what she was really fighting. "You asked me earlier why we fight," Jin said quietly. "You wanted to know what drives us. The answer is in that name you found. Let me tell you about Lieutenant Tay." Jin walked closer to the screen, as if proximity could help the alien queen understand. 200 years ago, there was a war on Earth, different human nations fighting each other, as we often did back then. Lieutenant Tay was ordered to defend a hill with his unit. They numbered less than 1,000 soldiers. The enemy force approaching them was over 25,000 strong. Velraya listened intently. These numbers she understood. 25 to 1 odds. An impossible situation. Tay's commanders told him to hold the position for 1 day, Jin continued. Just 1 day. To give other forces time to retreat and regroup. Everyone knew it was a suicide mission. Tay could have retreated immediately. He could have saved his soldiers. No one would have blamed him. "But he stayed," the queen said softly. "He stayed," Jin confirmed. "He and his soldiers held that hill for 3 days. 3 days against an army 25 times their size. When ammunition ran low, they fought with bayonets. When the bayonets broke, they used rocks and their bare hands. They knew they could not win. They knew they would probably die. But they also knew that every hour they held was another hour for their comrades to escape. Jin's voice grew stronger, filled with emotion. On the third day, the enemy finally overran the position. Most of Tay's soldiers were killed or captured. By any military measure, it was a defeat. They lost the hill. They lost the battle. But, Velraya prompted. But they won something more important, Jin said. They bought time for thousands of other soldiers to escape and regroup. More importantly, they showed what humans are capable of when we refuse to give up. Tai became a symbol. His name represents every person who has ever stood against impossible odds and fought anyway. Jin stepped back, her eyes locked on the Queen's. When our children learn about Tay, they do not learn about defeat. They learn about courage. They learn that winning is not always about victory. Sometimes winning is about holding the line one more day, one more hour, one more minute. Sometimes winning is about making the enemy pay such a price that they wish they had never attacked in the first place. The Queen's 4 eyes widened slightly. She was beginning to understand. Every soldier defending Earth right now carries Tay's name in their heart, Jin continued. We are all Tai. We all hold the line, no matter the cost. You can destroy Earth, Queen Velraya. You have the power. You will probably succeed. But we will make you pay for every meter of ground. Every ship you lose will be remembered across your empire. Every warrior who dies here will be mourned. Jin leaned forward, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. And other conquered species will hear about us. They will hear that one primitive planet with outdated ships and inferior technology cost the mighty Vraxis Empire over 100 dreadnoughts. They will wonder, if humans could do it, why can't we? You will not just destroy Earth. You will plant the seeds of rebellion across your entire empire. The silence that followed was heavy with meaning. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, the Vraxis officers stood frozen, watching their queen process these words. Finally, Jin spoke again. But there is another choice. Withdraw. Leave us in peace. You lose nothing but pride. We gain our freedom. And perhaps one day in the future, when the Vraxis face a threat they cannot defeat alone, they will remember the humans who refused to kneel. And we will stand together as allies, not as conqueror and conquered. Queen Velraya stood motionless. Her entire worldview, built on 3,000 years of easy conquests, was crumbling. She had thought power was everything. She had thought superior technology guaranteed victory. She had never faced a species that measured success differently than she did. The Vraxis won through strength and fear. They conquered because their enemies chose survival over resistance. But humans chose resistance over survival. They drew strength from their defeats. They turned fallen soldiers into eternal symbols. They refused to accept reality when reality seemed hopeless. And in that refusal, they found a power that matched even the Vraxis fleet. The Queen looked at Commander Thexnal, at her loyal officers, at the warriors who had served her for decades. She saw the exhaustion in their eyes, the fear. They had never encountered an enemy like this. They did not know how to fight a species that would not break. Then Velraya did something she had never done in 200 years of rule. Something no Vraxis queen had done in the Empire's 3,000-year history. She fell to her knees. The bridge erupted in shocked gasps. Commander Thexanal started forward, but the Queen held up one hand to stop him. I kneel not in surrender, Velraya said clearly, her voice carrying through the shocked silence. I kneel in recognition. I have finally met something my empire never prepared me for. An unbreakable will, a spirit that refuses to die, no matter how many times it is struck down. She looked up at Jin on the view screen, her 4 eyes meeting the human's 2. You asked me if I knew the name Tay. Now I understand. It is not just one soldier. It is all of you. Every human who fights knowing they might lose, but fights anyway. Every person who holds the line one more day against impossible odds. The Queen rose to her feet with slow dignity. She turned to Commander Thexnal and gave the order that would change galactic history. Full fleet withdrawal. All ships are to leave Earth orbit immediately. Earth is to be designated a sovereign world, forbidden to conquest by imperial law. Let it be known throughout the Empire that the 848th world did not fall. It stood. On Earth, in bunkers and shelters around the world, billions of humans watched the Vraxis fleet turn away. The massive dreadnoughts, so terrifying just days ago, engaged their faster-than-light drives and vanished into the darkness of space. Jin collapsed into her chair, tears streaming down her face. Around her, the command bunker erupted in cheers and sobs and shouts of victory. They had done it. Against all logic, against all odds, humanity had survived. Earth's 5 remaining military ships fired their engines in victory salutes. Across the planet, people emerged from shelters, looking up at the sky where the enemy fleet once blocked out the stars. The stars were visible again, clear and bright and beautiful. Humanity had survived. Not through superior technology or overwhelming power, but through the one thing that defined them above all else, the refusal to surrender. In the weeks that followed, word of Earth's resistance spread across the galaxy. Conquered species whispered the story to each other in secret. They spoke of the humans who held the line. They spoke of a soldier named Tay, who became a symbol of unbreakable will. And they began to wonder if humans could do it. Could they? The Vraxis Empire would never be the same. Queen Velraya knew this. She had opened a door that could never be closed. But as she looked at the reports of Earth's resistance, at the recordings of human courage in the face of certain death, she felt something unexpected. Respect. She had spent 3,000 years conquering the weak. Perhaps it was time to learn from the strong. The name Tay echoed across the stars. A human name that brought an empire to its knees. A symbol of courage that would inspire countless beings to stand against oppression. One soldier, one hill, one impossible stand that showed the galaxy what humanity truly meant, and the universe would never forget.